Hello everyone, this is Frito, also known as Mia. I was the Ubers player for US West this year, which was in this World Cup, which was a great experience. I love this tour, and honestly, I had a really good time playing just everything. Now, I mean, I'm not really sure what the best way to start this is. This was my first official tournament, so I had a lot of nerves going into this, but given my record is right here, I think this tournament went fairly well for me, even if it didn't quite end the way that I was hoping. I think this was a very, very good debut performance. I'm doing this instead of a team dump because every time I try to write a team dump post, all my teams end up getting deleted, or I end up deleting the post on accident in my sandbox because I forget that the save button is a thing. So I just do these rambling videos instead. Without further ado, let's get in. My pool for World Cup was here. Ice Master from UK, Crucia from Argentina, and Street Boom from Portugal. I mean, not the strongest pool, but also not the weakest one. So I was expected to probably go 1-2-2-1 in this. Obviously, as you can see here, I went 3-0. So I'm just gonna go through and detail my thought process and kind of go through the games as just to review. So versus Straight Boom, who had no experience playing Ubers prior to this, I didn't really have a lot to go on, but I was watching some of his games from Open because that was the only tour I had to go off of, and this guy just never brought stall breakers, period. Now, I'm not going to pretend like I'm some stall expert because I really... This is the first time I've ever stalled in a tour. Go figure, my first official game is the one that I decide to stall. So I don't really know a lot of the intricacies here. I had a lot of help from Scarf and Xcal, who will be two recurring names in this tour for how to build stall just in general in this tier. And the structure was taken from Scarf himself, who graciously passed me, and I edited it to my own liking. Now, because some of these teams, weren't entirely mine, and because I don't want to reveal too much information about how I build, I've deleted all the EV spreads off of the Pokemon here, so you can fill them in to your heart's content, but I've left everything else. So the idea behind this was between Dozo and Dozo should take care of Karadonization, in theory, with help from Aloe to stave off other physical attackers like Ho-Oh that could otherwise be obnoxious, especially if it's like sub-Ho-Oh. Fizzdef Ho, again, also helping out for the aforementioned 3 Pokemon. Spadef Gliscor was kind of just there so it could get the spikes and knocks on things like Eternatus, where otherwise that could be a kind of big problem. It wasn't the worst at switching into Ho-Oh or neutral Arceus forms like Arceus Fairy if needed, but wasn't really ideal. Standard CM Blissey with rocks here, mostly for Kyogre. It wasn't the end of the world. It was okay versus Lunala and other things along those lines, as was the Gliscor and Arceus. Gliscor notably doesn't have Toxic because this team is much too weak to Zacian, and NDM if it was left without Toxic, because it would have relied on Arceus staying healthy the whole game, never getting knocked, and to be able to stop NDMs. Um, not being toxic was not great into physical arcs, or, I mean, just Arceus in general, but it didn't end up being that big of a deal. I'm not going to pretend to know what the Terras are for. I mean, I can tell you that Blissey's is for Kyogre while still not being weak to anything Eternatus can click. Dozo is for Koraidon. Hello is for Lunala. And Ghostius. Alomola, same thing for Koraidon. Gliscor, I believe, was to help versus E-Killer and just to keep up spikes in case I face something like Terapagos, which this would wall. And Arceus was for NDM, Koraidon, and Zacian. So getting into the game, I'm actually just going to play this on hyperfast because I did stall. I'm not going to pretend like I played this game super well. I mean, I don't really have like I said, I don't really have experience playing stall. I made a lot of mistakes. I played the early game fairly well, but especially in the end game, I started getting really sloppy with how I was playing. Like, yeah, so this is probably where Terra Ghost Gliscor was supposed to be, but because I don't have any removal and I'm just fine letting the rocks go up. Sorry, letting hazards go up, I didn't really feel the need to Terra there. Yeah, so with the Ting Burn, don't really have a ton of hazard pressure. Same with the Arceus, I mean, just getting it to burn through recovers. That Terapagos is, like, actually attack invested because, like, it's doing so much damage to Blissey. Which does get to be a problem later in the game. With that U-turn, the Koraidon reveals that it's Scarf, which is huge. Because Scarf Koraidon is not a threat at all to me, which was one of the big things I was worried about. Same with this Calyrex, with it being boots and not something like Never Melt Ice or Choice Band. Not really in any danger versus any of this stuff. So now I can just kind of play very, very reactive into this. That was a really bad play on my part. I should not have let Blissey get that low. Now granted, he lets me just heal it back up, which was nice of him, but who knows. Yeah, I mean, this is very much one of those games that is just kind of over on preview. Even with the Terra Electricization, it's not going to be able to break Arceus plus Aloe, plus everything else. Again, probably shouldn't have let Gliscor get this low either. Like, shouldn't have let the Aloe take the Toxic as well, especially because I have Blissey. Like, this was very, very poorly played on my end. I have to sack the Aloe here to go Dozo and get a curse off, and then beat down the Arc a little bit, who I believe is out of recovers at this point, yeah. So with the Arc dead, the Dozo should just win the game, and Earthquake Gliscor ends up coming in clutch right there, so I don't lose. So now I just win. I mean, I wish I had more to say here, but I just don't know what I'm doing with stall, if that wasn't very clear. Next we go to Crossia. Now, Crossia is, again, another player that didn't have a ton of current-gen Ubers experience. He's very well-versed in Aura Supers, where he is one of the better players currently, but, like, his experience in SV Ubers was laddering a little bit during OLT, and then a few games during Open, and his round 1 games from qualifiers. So didn't really have a ton to go off of. I saw a lot of HO, so I really made sure that I didn't lose to it. I also noticed that he didn't load a ton of dark types, so it was very easy to cheese him with Demon NDM, as we see here, which was what I wanted to build around, just to threaten him a good amount. Boots Koraidon is just there as Web's counterplay. This is a set you're going to see me use a lot, especially early in the tour, when I didn't really have the best idea of how I wanted to deal with Webs a lot of the time. So, Flame Charge for speed, Low Kick for damage, Outrage just because this thing is so weak. You kind of need Outrage to break things. DD Arceus Ground, pretty standard. Just puts a big threat in a lot of the things that Koraidon doesn't like, especially Koraidonization don't like, and with Ice Beam, it's a very good lure for Landorus Therian, which otherwise could be a pain in the ass. This is what became my standardization. I would change the tires around, but flying was just so that I had an immunity to Earthquake in a pinch against opposing Arceus Ground, or like a Ditto if that was brought, Landorus Groudon, things along those lines. And then Lunala rounding it out with a pretty standard 3 attack set just to help versus E-Killer and also keep up my hazards. If you noticed, I elected not to run Stealth Rocks on this team, which will be another recurring theme of I don't really think Stealth Rocks are that great, so I'm going to drop them on a lot of stuff. I mean, Koraidonization being resistant to it, and then a lot of other things that Rock's gonna hit, and it just wasn't I just didn't find it the most useful. Now, this Deoxys was to beat Scarf Rabombi. This is the weird set of the team. The idea was, if you lead it into Rabombi, you can taunt it turn 1. If they're Scarf, you'll reveal your Scarf, but then you can go into Zacian, or Grounceus and start turning the momentum in your favor if they attack you. If they're not Scarfed, well, then the same 2 Pokemon are in a fantastic position to win the game. And then later you can come back in and set your spikes, or you can lead and always set your spikes as well. Trick was good into any balance or bulky offense that I saw, so yeah. And then Boost was just so I could do some damage to Koraidons. And we get into the game, and he's loaded Hatterene, Gambit, E-Killer. This is a team style that I'm typically pretty weak to. Now, this team really isn't because of the Zacian, Grounceus, and Koraidon, but a lot of times I build teams that don't really appreciate this prio spam style. So, it wasn't necessarily the smartest thing in the world from me. So we'll start here. I just immediately trick away the Scarf, and to get the helmet, because I don't see the Scarf being any value, because he does not have a Scarfer on this team. So I go Arceus and DD. I DD again, because this Lando can't touch me. It taunts. I EQ here on the hat coming in. I EQ again, because there's no reason not to. Now, the Lando doesn't think I have Ice Beam, so I Ice Beam and knock out the Lando. That crit does not matter. I made sure I was EV'd to always kill Landorus. So that's a max defense Bold Kyogre, and it just drops. So now I'm in a pretty good slot. My Grounceus goes 2 for 1, essentially 3 for 1 with how much damage it did to the Hatterene. And it puts my Koraidon, and especially my Koraidonization, in very, very strong positions to win this game. I'm not really worried about the Gambit either, because I have Terrifying Lunala and just a Zacian in general. But yeah, that was very big, getting the Kyogre down, because it just really opens up these 2 Pokemon, like, a ton. So the hat comes in, I just go Dio. There's no real reason. I just Psycho Boost and knock it out. I believe in comes the Gambit, which I taunt it. And just get up a spike, yeah. big thing was keeping the Gambit from getting that SD, and I get to do some damage to it. Into Koraidon, I'm just going to Swords Dance here. There's nothing he can really do. Ironhead does 50. It's not enough. Sucker, Sucker, obviously. I'm going to be dying to the E-Killer now. He elects to go for the speed tie, which I don't think was the right play, but I understand it. He realizes that the E-Killer brings in Pokemon that he can't deal with, so he wanted to try and get the thing down. Now, I crit through the Arceus there. It wasn't really that big of a deal because my Lunala would have killed. I also was boosting faster than he was, so I should have been fine. I don't think it mattered that much. I don't know his EV spread. I didn't really care to find his EV spread. So I believe that the crit did not matter. The big thing was him stacking the Koraidon made the Zacian, freed up the Zacian a whole lot. So yeah, so now I'm 2-0. Going into my last game versus Ice Master, which was the very next day. And it was also Father's Day. I wasn't originally going to be doing anything, so I had just planned to play after work. Then I loaded this. Now, Ice Master had been loading what I like to call pussy shit the whole tour. Very safe, very slow, fat teams that I don't think were very good, but were kind of just, I'm better than you, I'm going to outplay you style teams, which I don't know if I agree with loading them. I mean, he was 2-0 up until this point, so I guess it was working. So I don't know. I just didn't think it was a great style, but because of that, I was expecting something along those lines because I thought he would still have the same little bit more egotistical mindset coming into it. And I thought there was a chance because he loves he was one of the big proponents of non-Scarf Koraidon. So he loved alternative Scarfers, stuff like mostly Kyogre and a lot of Ditto, as well as Priority Spam. So I wanted Protect to scout the Scarfers on the Koraidon, but also to be able to beat any Dittos. The rest of this is fairly standard web stuff. Because my Koraidon can't break Stall, I tailored the next 3 Pokemon to beat Stall with the Electricization to break through Dondozo, CM Fighting Lunala to break through Arceus, T-Tar, Blissey if needed, and then Aura Sphere on Arceus Ghost, not because I was afraid of missing, but because PP stalls Blissey. These are fairly standard HO Pokemon. Notably, I dropped Moonblast on the Lunala because I wanted a better stall matchup into stuff like Blissey and T-Tar, or mostly just Blissey. I don't know why I said T-Tar. And I already had 2 fairy types. Now, granted, Ribombee probably doesn't stick around that long, so I felt confident versus Koraidon, fat, that I would be able to get the momentum in my favor and just be able to stop it from getting the setup that it requires. And then the last mon was a Meteor Beam Eternatus to, again, snipe fatter teams, but also just be a massive pain in the ass to his offense stuff, especially under webs, because things just don't switch into Eternatus very well. And so yeah, this is, besides the Protect Koraidon, this is a very, very standard team. And I queue into it, so there's more lore here. Last minute, I got asked to go to a family event after work. So while I'm driving home, I'm having to play this game, which my team which we really needed to make sure that we qualified. So I'm playing this game on my phone on the freeway, so I can't really calc. Which was tough. I mean, Was this the smartest idea on my end? No, but also I knew I wasn't going to have internet where I was going, so I kind of just had to get the game done. And yeah, I showed up 15 minutes late, which was annoying, but the game got played. Anyways, so let's just go into the game. I lead a turn, trying to snipe the Hattering lead. Just go for Meteor Beam. Just try to get some damage done, and the Arc Water reveals T-Wave, which is a problem because, Jesus Christ, that's really bad. I'm running Hyper Offense, which doesn't actually have a great way to break this Arceus, and it's CMT Wave. Now, granted, I get lucky with very lucky with a Restoring Poison there after the para, so I should just be able to stall this out of recovers because it's going to be Mono Judgment. So it's not really a huge threat. I go for another Meteor Beam, which might seem greedy, but it essentially just forces the Arceus to either CM or him to take damage on something else. I crit the Koraidon, and then unfortunately I just have to sack here to Scale Shot because I can't risk it clicking Flame Charge. It reveals that it's dice and not anything else. So I decided that Zacian was my least valuable Pokemon here, which a lot of people disagreed with. I just didn't actually see the value in having the Zacian. Like, yeah, sure, Terra Electric Zacian is, like, fine here, but with the full HP Lando, the Arceus is still fairly healthy, and I just need damage on the Koraidon for it to be, with Flare Blitz recoil. So I was very willing to sack the Zacian to Flare Blitz recoil here in order to take out the +1 speed Koraidon, which was easily the biggest threat. Now, Ice definitely saves that because he has Healing Wish on his Hatterene, and he can Healing Wish it back later in the game because, again, I don't really have much recourse against this, especially if I can't get webs up. So, yeah. I crit the Lando here, which basically just allows me to stay in. But I go hard Rabombi on the EQ. The Lando was also revealed to not be Scarfed, which means at this point I'm thinking the Kyogre is, because his Koraidon isn't, the Lando isn't, which would be two likely Scarfers, so I'm thinking it's the Kyogre, which makes sense with Hatterene, because if it's Hat really wants to helps keep the hazards off for Scarf Kyogre Spout. So I just go into Rabombi and I just start clicking Moonblast. He's revealed to be a very Spadef Hatterene, which I believe is to take on this. Second Noise just knocks me out. I wasn't getting my webs up anyways, so I go into Arceus Ghost and just Judgment. Can't try to set up because it has Nuzzle. In comes the Kyogre, which I believed was Scarf. It was not Scarf, it was CM. So with CM lefties, I'm going to CM more of this. I didn't realize that it was lefties at first, so I kind of was like, oh, well, I'll just CM more it, and then I was like, oh, I guess that's not the greatest. And he crits me there, which was pretty bad in all honesty, but also I crit him multiple times, so I can't really say too much. The Gustius did win from that position, but yeah. I get the +1 speed on the Lando. Now this is where I've kind of figured out, because this isn't Scarfed, the only Mon that could be Scarfed, otherwise this team is way too slow, like it doesn't even have a Mon faster than Zacian, has to be the Etern. And because it's Arc Water, the only thing it can do is T-Wave me. I can get a free Swords Dance here, maybe even two, in front of this, and try to get more Scale Shots off to boost my speed. So that's what he does. He T-Waves me, and I believe I just Scale Shot here. Yeah. So I Scale Shot here, and get to +2 speed, so now I'm back to neutral speed. He goes into the Etern. I decide to protect here to scout what it's clicking. It clicks Dynamax Cannon without Terra, which to me confirmed that it was Scarf Etern, because if he wasn't Scarf, he would have Terra'd on that turn because this would have died. You can EV a turn to live Scale Shots, 5-hit Scale Shots from Koraidon with certain items. like Citrus or Ayafapa, or sometimes even Haban, if you want to really risk it. Um, However, most of the time, those Eterns still want to Terra in front of a +1 Koraidon because they can't live it. So because this thing didn't Terra, it kind of confirmed to me that this was the Scarfer. So I Terra Fairy here, it's locked into Dynamax Cannon, and I get off the last Scale Shot. That crit doesn't matter because 4 hits always killed. Um, and from here, the game is basically over unless I get super parried. So I don't get parried, I Flare Blitz because I don't want to miss Scale Shot or have him go Fairy. And yep, that's the game. He gives me the Sunbag to do more damage. So, not the cleanest game ever. Both of us got some luck. I mean, his Kyogre and my Zacian kind of both got pretty lucky in this game. But I was very happy that the tech for Protect Koraidon worked out pretty much exactly the way that I planned. Now, US West ends up qualifying as the #1 seed out of playoffs, which means we were playing one of the 7th place tiebreaker teams, which was between China and India. India ended up winning, so my next game was versus Lana, who I don't think I'd ever played before, but she had been doing very, very well in this tour. I believe she went 2-1 in groups. Yeah, she did, losing to Richard, who ends up was probably the best Dupers player in this tour, to be completely honest. He was very, very solid this whole tour. So it's not necessarily a bad loss. Lana likes a lot of fatter teams. She wasn't really bringing HO right now. She was very, very honed in on the spikes balances that a lot of people were running. But she hadn't loaded a Groudon yet. So I was like, well, she's going to load that. She's going to load this Groudon Terapagos Gosius style of team that we had been seeing all throughout qualifiers, because again, it's another one of those I'm just better than you, I'm gonna outplay, which, given my lack of experience in these sort of situations, I think was a reasonable play. But I was looking at her scout, and she had absolutely no counterplay to Fluttermane on any of her teams. There was just none. Like, yeah, sure, there was a Ho-Oh, but Ho-Ohs don't actually beat this if you Terra. So I really wanted to load Fluttermane, and we Scarf and I, spent like a week trying to figure out how to make Fluttermane work, and it took a long time until we settled on the 6, which was mostly from Scarf. He had a lot of very, very good ideas here, like Thunder on the Fluttermane, and the Arceus Water. The problem with Fluttermane always is, how do you, like, if you don't run boots, it can't actually work. It can't be speed control because you don't beat webs, because your speed drops first and then photosynthesis activates, so you get a special attack boost. But if you run boots, you can't actually get the 2 KOs that you need, so you need to run Life Orb. So it's kind of a very, how do you split the difference? Split the difference here by going with another Boots Koraidon, this time with Dragon Claw, because Lana's teams had a lot more things that I did not want to be locking into Outrage versus. So there was that. This also served as Web's counterplay and anti-spikes, because this team was actually fairly weak to spikes in the end. So I didn't really want to have that. Arceus Water was mostly there to deal with Zacian plus Koraidon, and serve as a very, very good win condition into Arceus, like physical Arceus forms. But we were looking at Lana's game for PSPL Finals, where she ran Terra Poison on her Arceus, and then end up losing to Ditto because of uh, Terra Poison plus Side Shock. So we were looking at that and we're like, well, why do you need Terra Poison? The big one was Eternatus, right? And she loves her toxic Eternatus, but we started discussing and we're like, well, what if we just killed it? So we started calking out Terra Psychic, because Psychic still resists Koraidon's low kick, which is what it's going to be clicking a lot of the time when you haven't Terra'd. It's neutralization to everything Zacian clicks, and it improves you if you run into a Ditto. So, because now you can Terra, and because Psyshock's resisted, it's not going to do very much because you're a bold, essentially uninvested Arceus on special attack. So even at +6, if you Terra, you should be winning the 1v1. Very, very easily. So that was another benefit. And then SD decided not to bring Crunch because there wasn't a ton of Lunala, and this team was actually really, really weak to King Gambit. So, as well, like, it didn't appreciate Pokemon like E-Killer either. So we thought close combat would be the best way to go. Scarf recommended Terra Steel. I was thinking about Terra Flying, but he recommended Terra Steel so we could break through Landos for the Koraidon, and just resist other Zacian, which, honestly, looking at all this, like, you would think, oh, you're not that weak to Zacian. No, Zacian's stupid. Zacian could have very easily ran Wild into this team. That's the same reason for the Terra Steel on the Lando, which didn't end up ever being clicked, but that was the idea behind it. Just a standard Lando to help mitigate the physical attackers, but the big thing is Lando gets U-turn, so I wanted that to be able to pivot in stuff like the Flutter Mane and the Spout Koraidon. T-Wave Koraidon, or Spout Kyogre. T-Wave Kyogre, in my opinion, is the second best Pokemon in this tier. It's pretty close behind Zacian, but there's a reason. I don't think I don't think I had loaded a Kyogre up to this point. Yeah, but in UPL, I had loaded Koraidon plus Kyogre every single game because it's just truly the best combo right now, best pairing. And there's just nothing in this tier that can both switch into Thunder Wave, wanting to take the Thunder Wave, and deal with Kyogre, because, like, you can't go Koraidon, you can't go a turn. Like, Water Skies, if you're running Thunder, doesn't want to switch in. So it's like, that really just leaves, like, Blissey and Clodsire, which aren't very good Pokemon, and are really easily exploitable as things that can, like, actually switch in to a T-Wave Kyogre, so it's just really hard to punish, and it makes so much progress because this mon gets so many opportunities to fish. We went with Water Spout because Water Spout was a great breaking tool, and this team lacked a lot of breaking power because, like, Flutter Mane is good at KOing things, but it's not good at actually OHKOing things. Same with Zacian, and Boost Koraidon is just not very strong. So we needed Water Spout to actually be able to break through things. So we get in the game, I see a Ditto, and a Groudon, and a Eternatus, which is like, okay, this is basically what I expected. I was very glad that I had Terra Psychic when I saw the Ditto. So the game starts. Shout out my teammates, hyping me up. I taught the Groudon because I'm faster. Not going to reveal my speed, but she said she didn't expect my Lando to be that fast. I just get up my rocks. Will it end up being that important? No. But I also let her get up her rocks because there really isn't anything I can do. I can pivot into my Kyogre now, and I can freely T-Wave something because there's just nothing that's going to be switching in. In theory, she could use a Terra Water Groudon to like try and switch into Kyogres. But given that she doesn't have a very good switch into physical attackers, that Groudon is definitely very Phys-Def and will get to it KO'd by Ice Beam, if it tried to come in. So I just go Zacian to Scout, At this point, I'm not really too concerned about the Ditto. So I just Blade, because if the Ditto comes in at this point, I still have my Lando at full HP, I have the Arceus, I have the Kyogre at full, so there really wasn't much fear of going Zacian and getting Dittoed as long as I didn't click Swords Dance. So, just to be safe, I mean, Arceus should just wall NDM forever. Oh yeah, that's the other thing. Terra Psychic beats Photon at NDM, which otherwise you would lose to if you were running Terra Poison. Which we saw a lot in testing. I doubled a Lando here, expecting like anything else, but she stays in attacks, which I didn't necessarily agree with. I'm just going to EQ here, and then taunt the Groudon again. It reveals lefties and not Helmet, which was very nice. But the Groudon comes in, shows that it's Boots, so there's actually just no breaking power on her team. So, Kyogre, very, very free switch into Boots Koraidon. Leoturn's paralyzed. I just Ice Beam here because, like, it's free. There was nothing stopping me from doing that. And in comes the, I go Lando on the Necrozma because it covered everything that could be coming in. Potential, NDM on Ice Beam, Koraidon staying in, or Etern coming in. So I get the Lando in, and I just EQ because Rain's up for another 2 turns, so even if this thing's recovering, it's not going to be recovering enough to stay out of EQ range. So I just EQ there, take the chip, because this Koraidon really isn't a threat because it's Boots. So I'd much rather take care of the Necrozma first, and then kill the Necrozma and U-turn out into Flutter Mane, which might seem like a weird decision, but Flutter Mane either brings in Eternatus, which is fine, it's not really that big of a deal, or it brings in the Arceus, which I need to chip down. So I'd much rather figure out what the Arceus set is early than try to deal with it later in the game when it could be a bit more problematic. So in comes the Arceus. It shows that it's Boots, and I just sacked the Flutter Mane here. I don't really need it, to be completely honest at this point. The Koraidon's low, it's not breaking the Etern ever, it's not breaking this Arceus ever, and if I get Dittoed, it's not the greatest thing in the world, so I'm just going to sack this for damage, as she just goes for Shadow Claw. That revealed that she had a lot of bulk on this Arceus, so that was pretty substantial. I just low kick, covered everything. The Groudon comes in now. I just go Kyogre because if it Wisps, it's very, very good for me, and I just get to fire off a free Ice Beam here. The Etern is... Oh, why didn't I Ice Beam? Interesting play past me. I don't think that was your click, Mia. That was not a very good click. Maybe I was trying to catch the Ditto coming in. I don't know. That didn't really seem very good. This is a very Spadef Eternatus, with taking 31% there. So, yeah, 47 from Ice Beam. It's not taking a lot. It's just going to start recovering, which is fine. I mean, at this point, I'm willing to sack the Kyogre. It reveals Detail, which means my Zacian will just sit on this thing forever. I just Psyshock it, because at this point, there really isn't much threat to me other than this Etern clicking Toxic. So if I just Psyshock the water, Psyshock it, it's very, very good. And the Groudon comes in now. So Psyshock reveals that I'm CM, but Groudon also can't do anything to me. I dodge Wisp, but yeah, that's not really a big deal. Wisp is not going to affect me in any way. So I just get to CM, and then I just Judgment to try to take care of the Groudon in case it was something like Roar, get some chip on it, but it's just, I believe it's just dual hazards. So I just recover it up here, and in comes the Ditto, which Ditto can't break me, and I can break the Ditto fairly easily, so I just Terra Psychic and Calm Mind again, and from here the game should be over. I Judgment the Groudon, it lives, but it's not really that big of a deal because I can just recover it out. Play for a miss, get back to around full, or not. You know, I can just kill it and make a mistake. In comes the Arceus. I don't know anything about it. It's pretty fast, though. And, like I said, it's very bulk invested, as shown by the Flutter Mane, and especially shown by that side shock damage. But because it's faster, I'm now going to be forced to recover. It wouldn't kill me with Shadow Claw if it clicked it here because of how defensively invested it is, unless it crit, which would have been annoying, but also just like, not really the end of the world. So yeah, Shadow Claw does 25. Unboosted Arc Normal is not a very strong Pokemon, so I just get to recover here. I'm gonna recover, I should have just recovered back up to full. Now, I should have been clicking Judgment on these turns because the sun has now faded, and that would be doing more given that this Arceus is very clearly much more physically defensive than it is specially defensive. That doesn't come back to cause problems, but it reveals Bulk Up, which is now the second Bulk Up Arceus that I've seen this tour, which is like, why do people keep bringing this into me? And then I looked at my own scout, and I'm like, oh yeah, I keep loading physical spam. Yeah, so Judgment just cleanly knocks it out. I don't know what I was doing there. Just autopilot. And then from here, it doesn't matter what the Ditto does, I just win the game. So yeah, very, very good decision by Scarf to suggest Terra Psychic. And this team basically kind of just matched up extremely, extremely well into what she liked to bring. So, US West wins, and we go on to semifinals versus Excal, who, unfortunately, I had been prepping with the whole tour. And so this game was a real big bummer to me. I didn't really know what to do. It was tough. I had relied on a lot of his advice. Sorry. Throughout the entire tour. So I was really, really bummed having to play Excal. I kind of deviated a little bit. I went back more towards the offensive side of what I was loading. Like, this is HL. It's T-Spike's HL. So the idea was, because Excal loves fat and he loves to cheese, it was trying to cover both of them. The idea was Kieran Black should beat Stall, and then the other HL Mons should, like the Terra Electrixation and Toxic Spikes, Boots Koraidon, and an E-Killer should take care of HO in theory. And then with the Eject Pack, I could Eject Pack out on the turn to make it not set up fodder for other Pokemon. Although, in hindsight, probably not my best idea, but it was better for, like, stall matchups rather than HO. It was Terra Fire on my Kieran Black because I didn't see the need for Electric. I tried Electric and I tried Ghost, and they just both didn't fit very well. But Terra Fire plus Sub would basically just ensure a win versus Stall. And then I also backed that up with a Facade E-Killer, which would turn taking Wisp or Sacred Fire from, like, Hollow or Defensive Arceus into a boost that would help me break through the rest of the team. So yeah, I mean, overall, this was fairly standard. I think I tried to split the difference too much. This Kyurem definitely should not have been here. I could have used a different Koraidon set and found a different way to do it without the Kyurem. Probably could have, like, used honestly, a Kyogre here. Lunala also would have been really, really good. Just things along those lines. But I'd loaded so many ghost types that I was like, maybe as broken as I think they are, I think it's probably best to stray away from them this week, and I get really punished for that. So I load in, and I see Webs, and I'm like, yay, Webs, I beat this, and then I look in the 5th slot, and I see the Terapagos, and I'm like, oh, fuck. Now it becomes a guessing game based of what Ribombee set he is running, because usually Terapagos runs Scarfer because you can't get punished as badly for letting hazards go up, which is the main flaw of Scarfer is that because you're choice locked, you usually end up letting hazards go up once people realize. So, yeah, sorry, that also means, trying to lead Kyurem and Dragon Dance immediately and go for game is not a viable option. Same thing with going, because of Trick. I should have done it anyways, which I don't do, and then I end up losing for it. And then the other thing is my Zacian is Terra Electric, which is literally made to farm HO. However, because of the Terapagos, I would get roared out even if I got to +6. It would live, so yeah. Kind of flustered me a little bit here. The one advantage I did have was I had T-Spikes, but because there's a Terapagos, and I don't have a Ghost type, I don't have any way to keep my T-Spikes up. So I got really punished for not loading a Ghost type, which, yeah, I don't think I make that mistake again. Ghost types are just too strong if you're running anything that has hazards, especially that relies on hazards to win. So, get into the game, I lead a turn. I'm going to try to click T-Spikes, one layer of T-Spikes because that's just better. Now, the big thing is I just need to break this Rubombi stash so I can go into Koraidon, click Flame Charge, and then just start putting on a lot of pressure to the rest of Excal's team. However, he gets the drop, and I'm forced to switch out. Now, a lot of people are like, oh, that drop doesn't matter, that drop doesn't matter. One, I'm boost Koraidon, which is revealed later, so I would have had a chance to get to +1 speed and immediately put a lot of pressure on, forcing in something like the Ghostius or the Terapagos very early to do a lot more damage. And two, if my eject pack doesn't get popped, I still have the ability to double intimidate something with Lando, because I can bring in Lando, intimidate, and then go to a turn, eject pack back out, and then intimidate again, which has been very useful against things like Zacian and Koraidon, which conveniently are on Excal's team. So yeah, that set me really far behind, and from here, I don't think the game was winnable. No, I still play it out to the best of my ability, but from that point on, I'm so far behind, and webs have gone up that I'm like, I don't think this is a matchup that I can win anymore. So I just go Arceus because it's the only thing that I can do, and I just SD. That was really greedy, but I kind of needed something to force progress. I go Lando, and he Zax, which is like fine, and then in comes the Ray. I just U-turn here because I was expecting the Ghostius to come in. So I go into this to try and force out the Ray, because Rays don't run dragon moves a lot of the time. So I just Sludge Bomb, and I kill the Rubombi. Which isn't ideal. Now, in comes the Terapagos. As we saw, this is not Terra Ghost. If this was Terra Ghost, maybe I could have had a chance to win this game. But it is not. So I just have to fish for the poison. I do get the poison, which is nice. However, because I don't have Recover, I don't actually do enough damage to this. So I just T-Spike. My only way of being able to keep up T-Spikes is getting him low enough to the point where he dies to Rocky Helmet damage with poison. Well, get him down into Rocky Helmet range with poison. So, yeah. Which he plays that, he realizes that's my only, like, my last-ditch effort, only way I can win this, and takes advantage of it very well. So he roars here. Basically anything on my team is, like, not great to be roared in. I would have preferred, Lando or Arceus, ideally, because then I could have killed this. Well, Lando wouldn't have killed it, but I could have at least gotten rocks up then, and had the Ghostius and the Ray not be as big of issues. Unfortunately, he pulls in the single worst Pokemon that he could have, because this thing learns Toxic. That's what it runs last. It runs Toxic. So, like, even if I DD here, I'm walled by Zacian, which just invites it in, and my Lando is 2-hit KO'd. So yeah, like, I am not in a good spot with this Roar, and this Roar just sealed the game. Like, even though I have a Pokemon advantage here, it's over. So, like, yeah, I could DD here. I Scale Shot. Again, it doesn't particularly matter because this Kyurem is just fodder for Zacian. Now, Koraidon comes in, so I have to sack. I have to go Lando to sack. He Flare Blitzes and reveals Life Orb. So I've got a ton of recoil on this thing, but it doesn't really matter. So I bait more, try to see what his other moves are. He just Flare Blitzes again, not giving me the defense drops that I was looking for, but he has put himself into E-Speed range. So he goes to Zacian here, and it's like, yes, I could Swords Dance here. If I Swords Dance and Terra Ghost, there's a chance. But I still lose to the Ghostius, plus Rayquaza. So, yeah, that was a bit of a mistake on my end. He does reveal that he has CC, so there could have been an out there. I'm not exactly sure, though. So I'm forced to go into the Koraidon and Swords Dance. I Terra Fire and I Swords Dance, the CC does 40, which is, like, okay. Like, that's gonna put me in range of dying to Ray E-Speed, which is really bad, but it's also gonna force in the Ray, and I'm like, well, forcing in the Ray is not the end of the world, because, like, it brings in my Zacian, and then, you know, maybe I can get some sort of scenario where it wins. But the Rayquaza clicks Terra Fairy, and the game is now over. I go my Zacian as the Ray EQs. I play rough. So the problem with this is, as we saw, because Xcal loves Ditto, I don't have Blade. Now, would having Blade have changed this in any way? Absolutely not. No. The game was over. However, this was just like, yeah, lol, it doesn't even kill. And then he goes and Dragon Stimson kills. So yeah, that turn 2 drop, contrary to what everyone thinks, really did make a huge difference. And I was in a fairly shitty position from that point on, and I didn't play my outs the greatest. Like, I should have SD'd with the E-Killer in front of the Koraidon that was switching, so then I could Terra Ghost, and then maybe open up a win path for my Koraidon. I don't think that would have happened, though, because I think his Ghostius would have done way too much damage to me. But I digress. I lose for the first time all tour, but my teammates hella pick up my slack this week and get us into finals. So now I'm playing Entro in finals, and I'm very familiar with playing Entro. I've played Entro like 6 times in the last year. There's been a lot of games versus Entro. I know how he builds, I know how he likes to prep, what his techs usually end up being. So yeah, I went into this game with the advice of Xcal saying, hey look, you probably need to load some things that are a little bit different than what you usually do, which I kind of agreed. I was getting too linear with a lot of the styles, especially if you looked into my UPL. But a lot of my UPL teams were kind of just built in 5 minutes and just said, hey, I'm just going to load this because I don't really want to focus on this week because I was working on World Cup stuff. So yeah, I loaded a Taunt Koraidon to blow up any... Taunt Life Orb Koraidon to blow up any fat that Entro could try to bring. It also just farmed, like, everything, because he relied heavily on Water CS, Fairy CS hollow structures in in general to deal with Koraidon, so this was just something that could nuke things out. And then I bring this stupid ass Kyogre. Excel was very nice and gave me a very good spread for this Custap Kyogre, which was basically to always live Zacian after spikes or rocks, live Wild Charge from +1. So you could Oko it back and or T-Wave it depending on what the game called for, because at certain points it might have been better to T-Wave it so something else could set up, like Gambit. But yeah, well, once again, my spiel about T-Wave Kyogre is there's nothing that can switch into this thing, nothing that actually punishes it, so it's really, really strong. Terra Ghost is very nice for Koraidon's clicking fighting moves as a mid-ground into the Fairy, Terra Fairy Kyogres that are fairly common, as well as giving me some extra security against E-Killer, which otherwise could have caused some problems if I played like an idiot. King Gambit just looked insane into Enter Scout. Went with the standard set. Didn't really see any reason to shake things up there. Now, Entro cheated his ground type matchups a lot throughout this tour. Was very much reliant on, wasn't bringing anything that had air balloons or anything along those lines. Occasionally would bring a Lando or a Gliscor if he was loading something fatter. He really was just cheating his ground type matchups. So originally I was going to load Scarf Lando, but it ended up just being like, okay, what if we loaded Groudon? And I was like, okay, well, what if Axel suggested Swords Dance offensive Groudon? I was like, okay, but what if I ran defensive SD? Because this thing gets to set up on a lot of Pokemon, actually, and threatens them out, and then, especially with Rock Tomb, it becomes a huge threat because it mitigates the terrible speed that Groudon has. So yeah, and then with Life Orb Koraidon, I always like to see if I can fit Healing Wish on a team, so Healing Wish, Calm Mind, Arceus Fairy, as this team is really, really offensive. No Recover, which is fine. Very, very strong Pokemon. Earth Power, because I'm not really too worried about Ho with Wild Charge, Koraidon, Kyogre, Pecharunt that sits on it forever and gets momentum on it, and SD Groudon that was faster than most Ho-Ohs and threatens it out. So it was better to have something for stuff like Zacian or NDM that would try to set up in front of you. Yeah. Also, sorry about that. Also helped for Terrify Koraidons, because if you Earth Power them, it does a lot of damage if you're modest. And then Pecharunt, here's the real weird mon. We needed a Ghost type. Obviously, if you're loading spikes, you kind of need a Ghost type to block spin. But Pecharunt really solved a lot of the problems that this team was having with Ho-Oh and E-Killer being really problematic to deal with. And with Terra Dark, it served as a stored power check, which I had kind of been cheating in the last couple of matchups, as you can see here. Wasn't really loading things that dealt with stored power, like besides my own stored power and then that one Terra Darkmon. So yeah, the sitting on most physical attackers and being able to parting shot out or fish for poisons or just do a lot of damage with foul play was extremely, extremely, extremely valuable. And yeah, is this thing the best Pokemon in the world? No, but it paired really nicely on this team. And it was just super clutch. So I get into the game, he loads something. I don't really know what's happening here, but let's just get into it. So we leave Kyogre into Kyogre. My Drizzle goes off first, so I know I'm faster. So I just fire off a Thunder. Based on that investment, he is at least max HP. Might be more bulky. And then I get the Para, which is like, okay, cool, that's fine. He Thunders himself. Based on his damage, I can tell that he is pretty much max defense. on this, because that didn't even do half. Which is really good for me. So, because, I mean, I'm always going to outspeed him here, because, so he can complain about the para all he wants, but this Kyogre was only ever getting one turn to attack, so he got his one turn. He didn't para me, which is, like, fine. So I'm just going to Thunder again here. I have no reason not to. Groudon comes in, because, like, if he goes Groudon, like, yeah, it's 50% resisted, but there's also a chance that I could just cheese through him by paralyzing it, which I did to the Strap in UPL when I played him. He goes hard Groudon, and I just Thunder it again, and it hits and it paralyzes, which basically just ends the game. So he goes into this. I Thunder again. Like I said, no reason not to. I Ice Beam here. 50 shows that he is, once again, max HP on this. Citrus is an interesting idea because it stops you from getting to it KO'd by stuff, and it's really good into Scale Shot. That's something that people have figured out through UPL and World Cup, is that Citrus on a lot of Pokemon is really nice into Scale Shot Koraidons. Because it allows you to get the extra HP you need to live the 5-hit, as well as, like, kill it back. Unless he was max attack adamant, which, from the looks of it, he wasn't, this crit did matter, because my Kyogre would have lived and I would have been in Custap range, which, maybe not the biggest thing in the world. I probably would have had to sack it, but this Groudon would have been lower HP. So I was pretty bummed about that, but I just go into Pharisius because this thing is now a huge offensive threat. He doesn't really have a great answer to it. So I just Calm Mind and kill this Kyogre, since I know it's like max defense. So it dies. In comes the Arceus Fairy. I just go Petrarunt because there's nothing Arceus Fairy can do to me. Take the T-Wave and Parting Shot out. I go into my Groudon here because it is extremely strong, and just get up a spike as he goes for knockoff. Faster than NDM means I'm almost certainly faster than 220. So that means, like, a lot of his slower mons are going to be slower than me. So I was probably faster than the Kyogre too. And now I just Swords Dance, which really, I think, freaks him out because he doesn't really know what to do here. I just Blades and knock out the Groudon. In comes the Pharisius, which Judgments does 47, but then I Rock Tomb, and Blades would kill based on the Rock Tomb damage here. So he can't sack this because he still has to deal with my Koraidon as well as Gambit. So he goes into, I think this is a losing play. I think he should have sacked his Necrozma. I don't think Necrozma was useful. He goes into Lunala, and then lets me break the Shadow Shield, which is huge. No, this play is just baffling to me. I don't understand why he doesn't just kill this Groudon, because it's +2. I've already revealed that I have Rock Tomb. And based on the Blades damage, like, this is doing a lot. I have no idea why he decides that this is the time to fish for a miss, when I'm not going to be clicking a move that, like, I'm not going to be clicking Blades on this turn. I'm going to be clicking Rock Tomb, like always, to get the speed advantage on whatever is coming in. Because even if the Koraidon comes in, like, that's huge for me. So this is just an absolutely baffling play to me. I get the crit, which guarantees that my Blades are going to KO here. But doing 44%, 45% through Shadow Shield, it's hard to argue that Blades wasn't going to be killing without the crit Rock Tomb. So Lunala was gone, which was easily the biggest threat to my team. Because I don't have Recover on my Arceus. And now it's just a matter of... I saved the Groudon because it could be useful against the NDM later still. I could come back in and just Rock Tomb it. So I just Parting Shot out here. Because he's a real knockoff, I realize he's likely not going to be Photon Geyser, so Petrarunt can just sit on it forever. However, it's not really something I want to be relying on. So, yeah, I just pivot out. Bait another Judgment here by going into Koraidon. Also was going to see if he was going to Terra on this turn. Uh, just really just trying to scout a lot of things here, because I have a free Petrarent coming back in. So I click recover here, but I get parried, which is like, okay, sure, right? So now I just parting out, which, yeah, might have been a mistake, but I don't really need my... Like, at this point, I didn't think I needed my boots, and because it's almost certainly... Because it's boots, it's not going to have, like, Brick Break. I would be really surprised if it had, if it even had Earthquake. I really didn't think it was. So this is just a free time to go Gambit and Swords Dance. Keystone Steel Strikes to break the balloon. I have no idea why he thinks that that was the best play, but he does. He goes into Arc Fairy to sack it. I just kowtow and then Iron Head and knock it out. In comes the Koraidon. From this point, the game is pretty much over. My Pharisee is at full. That Scale Shot doesn't even kill me. I still have Petrarent. I still have my... Like, I have a hard time seeing how, like, with Terra Water Pharisee, how he's winning this game, even at +1 speed. Because I get this kowtow always, because Scale Shot is not killing me. I dodged a second Scale Shot for a good measure, which is funny, but there's... In the grand scheme of things, it didn't matter. And then I sucker. For anyone wondering why I was clicking Kowtow, Koraidon has common terras of Fire and Steel, which both resist Iron Head. So it was just safer to click Kowtow, does more damage. And then I was thinking Kowtow into Sucker probably knocked him out. So he goes into NEM, he terras. I just kowtow again, no reason not to, and I don't fuck around and try to click Sucker Punch there. I could have terra'd and lived, but there was no reason to. I could just go into Koraidon and kill him on the next turn. So yeah. Now, we were up 5-2, and then unfortunately we could not close it out, so it went to tiebreak. So Italy picks SM for Empo, which makes a lot of sense. I mean, Empo is the best player in the history of the website, and RSM slot hasn't done the greatest this season, so it made sense to pick into it. It's one of our weaker slots, especially when you have Empo. But that left us with the question of what did we want to do? And after a lot of discussion, we decided to pick Ubers for tiebreak, because after this game, it was very clear that this was our biggest skill diff slot, and it was just our best, what we felt was our best chance of winning if we went one in SVOU and then one in Ubers. Now, I knew Entro wasn't going to come back in. After losing in finals last year to High Lord, and then losing to me right here in, frankly, just kind of getting killed and making some not good decisions with what he decided to sack and how to play out this game, it was clear that he wasn't going to be the person that was going in, which meant I would have been seeing someone who had no Ubers experience. Either Santu or Punny, who had both won Smellgun Grand Slam, but before Ubers had gotten back into the circuit. However, Santu is, as of this point, the hottest player on the website. He went 7-0. It wouldn't have been surprising to see him slotted in Ubers. Punny, again, known as one of the best lower tier players on the website. He's extremely dominant in most of them, especially UU. So he also won Slam, so wouldn't have been surprised. Other option was tricking, just because we thought he could have gone into tiebreak. So they end up picking Punny, and we end up scheduling for last. So through two really good games. M-Forbes unfortunately loses to Empo, and then Attribute beats ZS, which was in what was a fantastic game. It comes down to this. My game versus Punny. I load a very, very similar comfort style structure, but this time, because we were expecting a lot more cheese, this team is much more heavily proofed against webs and stall. The top Koraidon obviously is there for stall. Terra Darkization is amazing if he brings any sort of cheese, like stored power stuff. But the big thing is, an ability shield Hatterene basically denies webs forever, while Gosius with Calm Mind and Taunt both obliterate stall and HO. Once again, I bring a Lando. I bring Lando to pivot, and Kyogre just because it's so strong. I debated between Kyogre and Eternatus here, and this Kyogre went through a lot of iterations. It was Scarf, it was... I had Scarf, I had Wakan, I had Lum, I had Citrus, I had Mystic Water. Things just... I went through the whole list of viable Kyogre items. Hell, I even tested AV at one point to see if it was going to be the play here. I think AV Kyogre is probably unexplored, but underexplored, but like it's really hard to justify dropping T-Wave on Kyogre at this point. Now, this coming on my end, like I'll be upfront, this is seems like a fairly obvious bring for me. The only real difference here is I haven't loaded a Hatterene in 6 months-ish, give or take. I think the last time I loaded one was when I was in Seasonal still. Yeah, so I thought, it covered a lot of the cheese potential here. With Cynoise and Split, it really helps into stall, and then Nuzzle helps a lot into HO, and then obviously Ability Shield blocks skill swaps, so from either Deoxys or Rabombi, because they do run that for Hatterene. If they elected to go that route. And, up until this point, I had full faith in myself to win this game. I mean, evidently from the way that I'm talking, I don't. I wish I did, but... although I wasn't nervous, I didn't really feel the pressure getting to me. I was completely calm during this game. I played like a coward. I played way too passive, way too reactive the whole game, and it set me way too far behind. Which is just what I want to preface this with. I know I made a lot of mistakes here, but yeah, I don't want to say I autopiloted, but I played scared. I played like a coward when I hadn't played like that the whole tour, and that was what was winning me games, along with just out-prepping every single one of my opponents except for Excal. So I think playing scared because, oh yeah, I see webs and I have a really good quote-unquote, I have a really good matchup, webs into Hatterene, as Smogtour's chat would say, Herder Mia should win. It's not as easy as that. And it never will be as easy as that, because basically Hatterene is you're playing 5v5. Now, the problem is they have 5 insanely broken Pokemon that you may or may not have answers to. So, yeah, you're basically playing 5v5 because the Hatterene can never come in. Versus, it can never be sacked unless the Rabombi is dead, which means it's even hard to throw it into stuff like Koraidon, where it's actually, useful. So, this is basically a 5v5 instead of a 6v6 here. And, I mean, let's just get into it. I lose this game on turn 1. So, he leads Rabombi, I lead Gosius. Gosius was my best lead. I should have attacked here. No matter what he clicks, because if he's not clicking webs because there's a Hatterene, and he's not about to just he's too good at the game to click webs into Hatterene turn 1.
If he tricks me, it's going to fail. If he skill swaps me, it's going to fail. If he attacks me, it's not going to do very much. I break the Sash, and then I can go Hatterene. If it is Sash, which I assume it's Sash on this team, I don't see a reason for it to be Scarf. Or if he switches, I get damage on literally everything because nothing actually switches into Ghostius on this team. Especially not a modest one. So, but like I said, I played like a coward here, and I go Hatterene, and I fall behind. Now, unfortunately, because I don't know anything about this Kyogre, I'm forced to go my own Kyogre because I can't let Koraidon take the Ice Beam or a Thunder Wave here, because that would be essentially just game over. I need the Koraidon. Koraidon to me is the most important mon because it revenge kills all three of these things down here, while still potentially threatening the Zacian and OHKOing the opposing Koraidon. My Koraidon is the most valuable Pokemon to me, and I'm not willing to risk its HP to this Kyogre. So it spouts, and I think you can see I spend a lot of time calcing here. I spend over 2 minutes calcing this out. It's some sort of modest Mystic Water set, so it can switch moves. So because of the ability to switch moves, it puts me in a really tough position here. I'm already really far behind. As I really need this Kyogre, but it's also a thing of now it's slower than everything. It doesn't live any hits. I can't manipulate it into Custap range because of the awkward damage ranges. But I also can't let Koraidon take the hit. And so because it's Mystic Water, I have to make a decision here. Do I let the Kyogre go down and go into Koraidon to revenge kill this thing? Or do I take the risky play, go Koraidon on what should be a relatively free Ice Beam for Punny, because even if I Thunder him, it doesn't die. Yeah, he makes the play and he spouts again, which at this point essentially seals the game. I go Koraidon, knock it back out, knock it out with Wild Charge. I probably should have CC'd there, would have taken less damage, but doesn't really matter. Ribombee comes back in, baits the Hatterene back in. Shows that that was a high roll from just special attack invested from Ribombee. I Pain Split here just to try to chip something down, break the Lunala's Shadow Shield if that was coming in. So Arc Electric comes in, Calm Minds. I just Judgment with mine. I wasn't expecting to be faster, but I was. So now on this turn I decide to taunt it. And then just Judgment again for some more damage. Once again, Koraidon comes in to revenge kill this thing. As I just Flare Blitz it. And now here is where I make the final mistake of the game. I mean, at this point the game is already really lost. Because I had been loading a lot of ground types and a lot of Lando, I thought that this would be the sub-Terra Flying set, which is made to beat Taunt Landorus, which I had been loading a decent amount. It also greatly turns the tables against Groudon. So I thought this was going to be sub-SD with Terra Flying, and if that's the case and I go Landorus, the game is over. My Lando can't touch it. I just lose. So in my mind, even if it is sub, my only play here is to Terra and click Flare Blitz, because if it doesn't sub, because it could just be 3 attack. If it doesn't sub, I trade down here, and then essentially it just becomes my Zacian versus the world. But I have a Healing Wish, and I still have Lando to intimidate things, and I can keep webs off, so it's not the end of the world if my Koraidon trades for the Zacian, but the key thing is it has to trade the Zacian. If I don't trade the Zacian here, then this game ends. So I Terra, and I Flare Blitz, and it clicks sub, and that's the game. From this position, like, okay, yeah, I can go Lando and, like, try to... My Lando's at full HP, try to pivot it around, and yada yada yada. It doesn't matter. I don't know what this thing's Terra is. It reveals Steel in a couple turns to kill Lando, but it's just like... It's just... Or to kill Myzation, but it's just... I can't ever go Lando because of the risk of sub-Terra flying, which I know Entro loves. As you can see, I spent a lot of time debating on a lot of these turns, but starting to run low on time here, and I'm pretty sure this is the lowest my timer has ever gotten in a tour game. And it's just, yeah. I'll let it play out while this goes. Yeah, so I wanted to say thank you so much to US West Zamog. I'm a Vert, Hex, and Attribute and Shiloh for giving me this opportunity as a relatively unproven player, someone to come in and play Ubers for this. Because you have the option of other players that could have potentially filled this slot, but you gave me the opportunity in my first official and gave me this amazing chance to tiebreak in finals, and I am sorry that I couldn't pull it through. You know, I wanted to win this so badly. I really did. I put my heart and soul into this tour, but it just didn't work out. A huge thanks to Xgal and Scarf again for helping me with prep almost every week. It was amazing working with both of you. I greatly value your insights on the tier, and it was a good time. And then thank you to FC for occasionally looking over my teams and playing like 2 test games during pools, TKO and Meru for playing some games with me, and then just the rest of the people on US West. I know I didn't get to interact with the rest of you guys very much, but I did greatly appreciate the environment of West. It was fantastic, and you know, I look forward to being there next year. I have a lot of respect for Punny, especially for picking up a tier in a week that he had never played before, and going into tiebreak. I especially appreciated your post after, where you were the only person on your team not to shit on me if you talked about the game. So that was greatly appreciated. I have a lot of respect for you. You're also the only person that gendered me correctly, but it's Smog Tours. I don't expect anything better. And yeah, I just appreciate all the support that everyone had for me throughout this tour. Even if US West wasn't an underdog, I definitely had that underdog mentality, and I'm glad I got to show it. GG and GG's to Italy. Congrats to them, obviously. They were the best team in this tour, and very much insane competition. Crazy coming back from a 5-2 deficit to winning tiebreak. Very impressive composure, which was daunting to deal with, especially during tiebreak. And yeah, just saying thank you again to West, and thank you to everyone for watching. I'll probably be doing this next week with UPL, unless we somehow end up in a tiebreaker for that, in which case then it's going to be 2 weeks. Alright, see you then.